Hey, a lot of you have heard by now about what happened in Atlanta last night. At least last time I checked, 8 people murdered, 6 of whom were Asian American. And so I wanted to hop on and say a couple things. First of all, a lot of y'all know that I'm a pastor here in the DC area at a church called McLean Bible Church. And we're a multi-site church, which just means we have several locations around the DC metro area. And I serve as one of our lead pastors of the church, but I've also had the privilege of serving one of our specific locations, location pastor at our Montgomery County location, right on the northern tip of DC. It's one of the most diverse counties in the country. There is a huge and deep Asian American population here in this county, and that's reflected in our church family. So our Montgomery County location is 34% Asian American. That doesn't even include the fact that we have so many other Asian Americans across our whole church, across all of our locations, and we're thankful for the diversity of our church. And so when I go to sleep last night and I wake up this morning to headlines of such a horrific act of terror, my heart is heavy. Like, I've been wrestling with this all day. And to be honest, I saw this break last night. I wanted to hop on Twitter. I wanted to hop on Instagram. But I've learned to give God my first reaction, to allow his word to shape my words. And so I wanted to say a couple things to you. We don't know all the details yet, but we don't have to know all the details yet. We don't even have to fully understand all of dude's motives, all of why he did what he did, because here's what we do know. What we do know is that of 8 people that were murdered, 6 of them were Asian American. What we do know is that over the last year and a half or so, there's been an increase, a surge in prejudice and antagonism and racial violence against Asian Americans. And these things aren't happening in a vacuum. They're happening in a context. They're happening in a cultural environment that's created and perpetuated by derogatory and hateful and racist and ignorant comments. Comments like China virus. Stuff that we hear from people in our jobs, that we see on social media, that we hear even from public officials, and maybe even comments that you've heard from people in our own church family. These things happen in a context. They don't happen in a vacuum. And so listen, so I understand how it feels as an African-American man. I understand how it feels for these compounding headlines to weigh heavily on your heart, because that's what makes individual instances like this so traumatic, because it's happening in a context. I know what it's like to have that stuff weigh heavily on your heart as you're trying to process it all, and you got to go to work. You're interacting with lots of different people. You're seeing lots of different commentary. You're trying to process what all of this means for you, for your family. And so we, David, Wade, and I, our lead pastors, other leaders in our church, got together this morning, and we wanted to say to you, Asian American brothers and sisters in our local church family. I'm not talking to everybody in our country right now. I'm specifically talking to you. We wanted to say to you, Asian Americans in our local church, that you are not invisible. You are not invisible. And the pain and the unique challenges that face your families, that face the broader Asian American community, the particular dynamics that are a part of the immigrant experience, those unique challenges are not irrelevant. They are not insignificant. In fact, God tells us to mourn with those who mourn. And I know some of y'all are mourning today as you're trying to, as you carry the weight of what all of this means in our country right now. We are mourning with you, not just because you're mourning. We are mourning because this is sinful. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely unacceptable. And as followers of Jesus, we cannot stand for it. And so we wanted to say to you, you are not invisible. We are praying, church family, we are praying that in the midst of situations like this, that God would continue to make us the kind of church family that's characterized by compassion by competence and empathy and awareness, by justice and reconciliation and love, all things held out for us in the gospel, all things that are a part of the doctrine of the image of God and the whole counsel of God's word and the character of the God that we worship, who cares. He cares about stuff like this. This is a God who sees you, and we want you to know that we see you. We see you. We are standing with you. We are praying with you. We are in this together. And we love you, church.